Hello, friends. It's Allison K. Dagney again, and welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. Today, I'm speaking to those of you who've been through a lot of hard things, especially emotional abuse, those nasty, toxic relationships, or even just the times when you had to fight to protect yourself, and maybe you still are. But here's the truth that I want you to know. When you've lived in survival mode, which many of you have and many of you still are, you become incredibly skilled at defending yourself. And I know this very well. But those defenses have saved you. They have protected you. They were necessary for your survival. But sometimes those same defenses actually become the walls that keep you trapped, building a cage around you that you can't escape. So in today's episode, I'm sharing 10 ways of how defending yourself might be keeping you stuck. No blame here, no shame here. We're just going to get curious so you can see where your own survival has actually become your cage and how you can actually set yourself free. So let's dive in. Now, before we get into all the ways, I just need to preface this by saying there is no blame here. I'm not trying to call you out or anything like that. What my goal ultimately is to help you see the patterns in yourself that are keeping you from being the best version of you that you can. And oftentimes this comes from these adaptations to our traumas, right? And this is all the kind of thing that happens not consciously. It happens unconsciously. It happens without our conscious awareness. It is all the things that our mind and body do to keep us safe, to help ensure our survival. Okay, so the good news is we can change these things. There's lots of things that we can do to heal these wounds. But the first step is always going to be awareness. It's going to be listening to these 10 things and seeing if you can find yourself in any of them. And if you can, how can we start to change that? So that instead of building those walls around yourself, you lower the walls, you find the confidence within yourself to be who you truly are, and leave all of those wounds in the past where they belong. All right. So briefly, your trauma and the experiences that you've been through that created those deep wounds inside of you, whether that was in your childhood, in an adult relationship, what that does is it teaches you to defend yourself and protect yourself, right? Because if you're under attack, or if someone is constantly criticizing you, if you have been physically assaulted, if you have been sexually assaulted, if you have been emotionally assaulted, any of these things is going to set off alarms because that's not safe, right? So our mind and body immediately goes into protection mode, and we're going to adapt strategies to help us stay safe. So you've heard of all of the trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? So if you are under any sort of, physical or emotional stress, chances are you're going to default to one of those, whichever is going to make the most sense for you in that situation, okay? And that is just to help you stay safe. It's a defense mechanism. Now, these are really, really, really amazing things because it does help us, right? But sometimes it doesn't help us. Sometimes the threats that we think are happening in the present moment are just the memories from the past, right? So it's important to recognize, is this an actual threat right now? Or is this just a memory that's trapped inside my body and mind that I'm recalling in the present moment because of a trigger? And if it isn't an actual real threat in the present moment, even though it might really feel like it is, then often what happens is those walls start to build around you, and then it becomes your prison, okay? So what once saved you and protected you can now be the thing that keeps you stuck. So let's talk about these 10 ways. The first one that I have here is hyper-vigilance. So hypervigilance is when you're always scanning for danger. Okay, so this might look like anytime that you're out in public, you're not only just visually scanning things, but you're hearing for things. Your body is picking up on clues and cues from your environment around you. It's almost like you cannot turn off any of the noise, any of the visuals. Like you're seeing every little possible thing that could go wrong, that could harm you, that could harm others around you. You are constantly looking for something that could be a threat. So you're scanning, constantly looking for threats. This could also be in just personal relationships, right? It doesn't have to be like in a big public setting. It could be you're having dinner with friends and you're scanning for their facial expressions. Did somebody roll their eyes? Did somebody have a little snicker or a laugh kind of at your expense, right? You're looking for danger. You're looking for something to be wrong to protect yourself, right? Chances are you had to do this in childhood or some other time of your life when there was a lot of stress, there was a lot of trauma, there was a lot of bad things happening to you. And so your automatic response is to be alert and be hypervigilant to everything so that you can, be ready to run, be ready to fight, be ready to do whatever you need to do in that situation to protect yourself. So hypervigilance, right, not only is this protection mechanism, but it also is very exhausting. It's extremely exhausting for people who experience this because it's like you can't turn off your thoughts. You can't turn off your awareness about your environment and about the people in your environment. And then a lot of times people who are hypervigilant catastrophize. So they will think of worst case scenarios. Even if those scenarios aren't real, they'll just make up the scenarios in their mind. What if this, these 10, 15 things happen? And so what happens then is you don't have any room for real joy, real connection with people, real in the moment presence, because you're living in the future. You're not in the present moment. You're thinking about what could happen, what bad things would happen if you turned your back or if you weren't paying attention. Is somebody going to hurt you or betray you or attack you, right? So this kind of trauma response, this is a defense mechanism. This is to keep you feeling safe, right? But what it also does is it keeps you from being present. And then that steals your joy. It steals your connection with other people. So maybe you are like, yeah, that's me. I am very hypervigilant because when I was a kid, my parents would explode over the slightest thing. So I was always tiptoeing around and waiting for the next shoe to drop. So now that's my go-to response. I have to always be aware so that I can protect myself. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to start connecting these dots so that you know your patterns. And when you know your patterns, then you can start to shift them, right? So in a case like this, somebody who's hypervigilant, it's going to take practice to pull yourself out of those future scenarios, those catastrophizing things, right? You're going to have to remind yourself that you are safe and that you can protect yourself. And this is not the same situation as that when you were a child or when you were a kid, right? And this takes practice because you actually have to rewire those old programs that are making you think there's danger lurking around every corner, because there really isn't danger lurking around every corner, right? Yes, is danger a real thing? Sure. But like if you're just having dinner with your friends and you're scanning for someone's facial expressions because you had to do that as a child at dinner with your family when your mom or your dad would get upset and you knew something was about to happen, right? It's the same thing. You're just reliving it in the present moment. And so what you do then is you take whatever you've experienced from the past, you bring it into the present moment, and then you're projecting it into the future. So like all the horrible things that would happen. So we have to really be consciously aware of this so that we can change this pattern to keep us from feeling stuck, because when that happens, you are really at the mercy of your trauma, okay? And you don't have to be. Number 2 is seeing criticisms everywhere, okay? So what I mean by this is you might interpret neutral comments as attacks, so you're staying guarded all the time. All right, let me give you an example of this. Let's say that a friend says, hey, let's go out to dinner, and you choose. And let's say that you're like, okay, I want to go to this Mexican restaurant I've been wanting to try. I'd really like to go there. And your friend says, oh, I really don't like Mexican. Like the last time I had Mexican, it made me really sick, and I don't want to do that. And then you immediately interpret that as an attack. Like, oh, you don't like anywhere that I choose, or you asked me to pick something and now you shoot it down, so you must think I don't know anything or care about you, or like whatever. So like you're taking someone's just like neutral stance and interpreting it as an attack, right? So the perception may not be rooted in reality. Okay, so you end up staying guarded. Now, this doesn't have to be like someone's like comments either. It can be someone's behavior, right? So you could see it as a criticism of you or an attack on you if someone cancels plans with you. So you might then make that mean something about you, or you interpret it as they hate me or they don't like me. But seeing these criticisms, right? One, it's not your fault. It's your programming. Okay, so I need to make sure that that's very clear, right? If you're always seeing people's behaviors and people's words as an attack on you when they really might not be, that's just because you're trying to protect yourself, because you probably have been attacked and criticized a lot. So it's similar to hyper-vigilance, except for this is specifically about people's words and behaviors, not just general scanning. It's like specific to you feeling like that you're being attacked, that other people's comments, other people's words, other people's behaviors, inactions, whatever, are actually a personal attack on you. So the key here is to catch yourself when that happens and pull out of yourself, because all you can see in that moment is your pain. All you can see in that moment is your suffering. All you can see in that moment is this like flashlight on you, right? But instead, there's probably a lot of other real possibilities that you have not considered, right? That Mexican restaurant example is not that your friend was attacking your choice, or, doesn't trust you, or it literally is because they had an experience that was not so great, right? And that is a real thing. So it's almost like you have to put yourself in that person's position and see it from their angle instead of only seeing it from your eyes. Okay? So if you catch yourself doing this, I'd really encourage you to stop, and you'll feel it in your body. You'll feel attacked. And you have to really push yourself to say, is this really about me? Is this person really attacking me? Or could there be something else here? Right? Let me give you another example. Imagine that you've had a tough week, like really stressful with work, with family, and one of your friends asks you, hey, you've seemed like really quiet lately. Is everything okay? And instead of you hearing concern, your brain is automatically defaulting to defense mode. So you, in your mind, start thinking, what do you mean I'm quiet? Are you saying that I'm rude, or that I'm not fun to be around, or that there's something wrong with me? Maybe you start explaining yourself, or maybe you even start feeling angry or resentful at your friend for criticizing you, even though they were just checking in, right? That the comment wasn't meant to attack you, but your past experiences started to teach you that criticism often hides behind seemingly less harm words. So especially if you've ever experienced like covert emotional abuse, things like that, this could be very prevalent. And I know this well because I did experience covert abuse. And it's really exhausting because you feel like you're always under a microscope, And it makes connecting with people a lot harder because you're bracing for an attack all the time. An attack that's probably not even coming. It's just the trauma that you've lived through, right? So these are the kinds of things that can get very easily misinterpreted, but the reason why it is because we make meaning out of it. We are making assumptions and meaning out of things that may or may not be true. And most often they're not true. It's just our default. The things that we do, we build up these defenses because that's what we've always had to do. Okay, so just being aware of that is going to be really, really helpful for your healing. Number 3 is needing things your way to feel safe. Okay, and what I mean by this is like, if you have rigid rules that help you feel in control, but alienate other people, you're building walls again, right? But this is still a defense strategy. This is a way that you make yourself feel safe, okay? So examples of this would be like if you always need your friend to check in with you every single day. Otherwise, you feel like they're going to abandon you or leave you, right? Needing that to be your way, okay? That could be an example. Let me give you more. Let's say that you're planning a dinner out with a friend and you suggest your favorite restaurant. Again, like let's go back to the Mexican restaurant because you know the menu, you know the vibe, you know the lighting, blah, 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 all the stuff. It feels safe and comfortable to you. But let's say your friend says, oh, well, I'd really like to try this other place because it's new and I've been really wanting to go there. And then suddenly you start feeling this anxiety or this irritation. And then you're like, no, let's just stick to the place I picked. It's easier because you want what makes you feel safe. So deep down, it's not really about the dinner, right? It's about feeling in control so that nothing unexpected comes up for you, okay? But the problem with this is that always needing things your way can make relationships feel really rigid and exhausting for both you and the other people who care about you in those relationships, okay? So like if you are feeling really rigid about like what you're doing, the plans, the things that you have with other people because it makes you feel safe. Now I'm not saying you shouldn't feel safe. And if you have like a real aversion to something because let's say I don't know, like that was the place that you had your first date with your abusive ex and it really brings back traumatic memories, obviously, right? Like I don't want to go there because it triggers me and it brings back bad memories. I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I'm talking about things that it's just comfortable for you. You just feel really good there. And then when somebody suggests something else, you're very rigid about it because you feel out of control. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about where if you're needing things your way to feel safe, okay? Another example would be like, let's say that you're at work and you're in like a project with other people. And in your mind, you already have a specific plan for how it should be done. Like you're already thinking like, oh, I know this needs to be done like this and like this and like this. But let's say one of your coworkers says, well, I actually think we should try this instead, right? But instead of you being open to it and considering it, you shut it down because for you, it feels safer to go with what you suggested, right? And it's not that you're trying to be difficult. It's that uncertainty of what this other person is suggesting actually can feel threatening to you, right? Because you've lived through chaos or criticism in the past. And so having something that feels solid to you is going to help you feel more safe. But the problem, again, is this like strict rigidity, right? About like, oh no, it has to be this one certain type of way, can block creativity. It can block teamwork. It can block connection with others or even your own personal growth. So these kinds of things where we are always needing things to be our way is actually a way that keeps you stuck. But it is a trauma response. It's a trauma adaptation because it helps you feel in control and you feel safe. So the way that we would shift something like this would be to, again, we have to consider these other possibilities. Is it possible that I can still feel safe doing something a different way? Why do I believe that it has to be this specific way? What is keeping me from wanting to try something new, right? That sort of thing. You have to really question yourself. Like, the healing process requires reflection. It requires deep questioning of yourself, and it's taking yourself out of autopilot. If you're not questioning yourself, your behaviors, your thoughts, all that stuff, you're going to stay stuck, okay? Number 4, and this is probably one that you can relate to, at least I know I can, is over-explaining or justifying your behaviors, your actions, your words, your intentions, like all of that stuff. Because when you're constantly defending your choices, you're draining your energy and you're feeding self-doubt. So let's talk about that. Let me give you some examples. So let's talk about maybe if you canceled plans with a friend, and instead of just saying, hey, I can't make it tonight, you send like a 3-paragraph text about every detail of why you can't come. Like, oh, I didn't sleep well, and work has been so stressful, and my dog was sick, and how I feel so bad, and I'll make it up to you. Like, because it's not just about being polite, right? What's happening here is you're defending yourself against something deeper, a fear that your friend's going to be mad at you, your friend's going to judge you, your friend's going to abandon you or leave you or not want to be your friend anymore, right? So you over-explain. It could be something like buying yourself something, right? Like, let's say that you had your eyes on a new pair of shoes, and let's say somebody compliments them, and I'm like, oh, I really like your shoes. And instead of saying thank you, you're explaining, oh, I got a deal, and I really needed new shoes because my old ones were falling apart, and I didn't really spend that much money on it, right? You're not just sharing. You're trying to justify your choices so that nobody feels or thinks badly of you. So even things like that, of the over-explaining like your own choices, like why you did something that is really no one else's business, right? You're giving this extra information, justifying your choices, right? Over-explaining. This could even look like just like sharing your opinions. So in just a normal conversation, you share an opinion, but maybe you immediately start backtracking on it, right? Like, let's say you have an opinion on something, you say it, but then you're like, but that's just what I think, and I could be wrong, and maybe it's not right, maybe it's silly, I don't know, what do you think, right? That kind of stuff. Because what you're doing here is you're trying to protect yourself from being criticized before it ever even comes. And this happens a lot to people who have that like self-doubt, because again, you're trying to like kind of get ahead of any attacks or feelings of being unsafe by trying to put that out there as a disclaimer, like to defend yourself. This could happen at work too. Like, if your boss were to ask you, like, why did you do it this way? Why did you approach this project like that, right? And instead of you just answering it, you might go into like a long explanation. You might try to, touch on every single reason or angle or what your intentions were. And like, you're trying to just prove that you made the right choice so you won't get in trouble. This could happen in personal relationships too. Like, if you're in a romantic relationship, you're remarried, you're, in a committed relationship with somebody. And if somebody says, why did you leave this here? Or why didn't you go to the store today? Or like whatever. And instead of just saying whatever, oh, well, this happened and that happened. And, I was trying to do this and da 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 da. Like, and you're going on and on and on, right? That over explaining is actually something that keeps you stuck. It keeps you in a cage. Okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Number 5 is pushing people away first. Okay, this is akin to self-sabotage, all right? So what this looks like is you leave people before people can leave you. And it feels protective, like you're keeping yourself safe, but what it really does is it deepens your disconnection and deepens your loneliness. But this is a very normal thing for people who have been emotionally abused. Because again, like, if you're the one that ends the friendship, you're the one that breaks up with the person. You're the one that quits the job. You're the one before you get fired, right? These are the kinds of things I'm talking about. You take preemptive action to protect yourself. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't protect yourself. The whole purpose of why I'm telling you these things is to explain to you that you might be doing these things that feel like defensiveness, that feel like you're trying to protect yourself, but actually it's keeping you trapped. So how does pushing people away first keep you trapped? Well, what you're doing is you're avoiding, and you're not actually facing your issues. You're not facing the uncomfortableness. You're not going through it. You're going away from it, right? Because it feels safer, right? It feels more protective. But really what it's doing is it's keeping you lodged in this position of stuckness where you feel this like inability to grow. It's like you're stunting your growth. Okay? The sixth one is obsessing over fairness and justice. And my, do I hear this all the time. On my online quiz that I have on my website to help you figure out what your subconscious beliefs are, there are several questions on there that this comes up, where even it's not fair is an answer, or it shouldn't be this way, or people shouldn't act that way, or they should be held accountable, right? So this obsession over things needing to be fair, or the other person needing to be held accountable, the world isn't fair, right? This keeps you stuck in resentment. It keeps you stuck in contempt. And contempt is a really low vibrational emotion, okay? So we cannot heal, move forward, and be the best versions of ourselves if we are stuck in resentment, if we are stuck wishing and hoping that fairness and justice happens. Now, don't turn off the podcast yet, because here's what I want to say. I understand that we have a justice system. I understand that if someone harmed another person, they get arrested, they get sent to court, they have a trial, and oftentimes they are either punished or they are set free, depending on if it was like a judge's decision or a jury, right? Our world is that way, right? We do have a justice system for a reason, to bring criminals to justice, to keep the scales balanced, to keep things fair, okay? So I'm not denying that. Please don't think that I am. What I am talking about specifically here that keeps us from healing and from growth is obsessing over something like, this is not fair. Life is not fair. This shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't have to deal with this. These kinds of things that are churning and churning and churning inside of you are actually building a cage around you. You think that wishing and hoping for this fairness and justice is actually going to heal you. But let me tell you, I know of a woman who was severely abused, physically, emotionally, and sexually, okay, by another female in her life. And that perpetrator got tried in court and got sent to jail. And guess what? The victim started to feel guilty, sad, bad, shame, all these things, right? And I'm not saying, and you might be like, well, I would never feel those things. Well, we don't know, right, until we're in that situation. But my point is, she wanted justice. She did. She prayed for it daily. She wanted this person to be held accountable, and they were. They were. But that isn't what actually healed her, right? So not only does somebody getting justice not change what happened to you, right? If somebody is sent to jail, right, it might make you feel better that they're behind bars. It might make you feel better that they can't be out in the world hurting other people, right? But it's not going to change what happened. It's not going to erase the past. It's not going to change your feelings inside of you, right? Because you are the one that gets to change those feelings. So the whole point to this one is that if you are someone who is constantly wishing and hoping that things would just be fair or that your abuser would be held accountable, right? I'm not saying that they shouldn't be, right? I want people to be held accountable too. It's the part that's happening inside of you that you're building that cage out of, right? Whether they get held accountable or they don't, you get to choose the freedom and peace that you make inside of you. And if you're going, I don't get it, I don't understand, believe me, I understand why you don't understand, right? Because your brain has been on this thought loop for so long. And if you're resisting and you're like, you feel like, ew, like I don't like this, I don't like the way this feels, like, yes, I should be feeling like I need justice and I should be feeling like things should be fair. And I'm not willing to think about it any other way. Well, I'm here to tell you that that mentality is what will steal your peace, what will steal your joy, what will take from you, will keep you feeling stuck, okay? So you have a choice. You always have a choice. What do I want to be? How do I want to feel? And if you're like, I can't change how I feel, well, I'm here to tell you you can. You absolutely can. First, you got to get into your body. You got to change the thoughts in your mind. But it's totally possible to do. And that's what sets you free. Okay? The seventh one is expecting people to like understand you, get you, read between the lines without you being direct or explaining. Okay? So let's say that you are upset about something and you are just kind of moping around the house. And I don't know, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your kids, whoever, don't acknowledge, don't say anything. They don't ask you how you're doing. They don't, nothing, right? But you are internalizing that and you're really upset because they're not seeing your pain, or they're not acknowledging you, or they're not making their life focused on what's going on in your internal world, right? So expecting people to get you, to understand you, to read between the lines, right? Without you being direct, without you communicating, what you're doing here is you're just avoiding vulnerability. Okay, you don't want to be vulnerable. You're too scared to say how you feel. You don't want to express that you need something or that you have a emotion that you're struggling with or a problem, right? You don't want to be vulnerable. You're trying to avoid that. So that's a defense mechanism. That's a way you're protecting yourself. So you may just choose behaviors that you hope other people will notice so that you don't have to be vulnerable, so that you don't have to communicate and be direct, so you don't have to explain yourself, right? Just hoping people read between the lines, hoping people will see you're in a mood and come to you and approach you about it, right? And this is very normal, right? This is something that we do. It is manipulative, right? But I'm not using that word like, oh, that you're trying to like hurt people or anything. It's just manipulative in the way that you're trying to achieve something that you want by doing something else versus just being straightforward. It's hard to be straightforward because you're scared if you do, that other person or people will reject you, abandon you, leave you, or shame you, or tell you you're being too much or too needy or whatever, right? But this expecting people to read your mind, to understand what you're going through without being vulnerable, without telling them, right, is a defense mechanism. And a lot of us do that. So maybe something to be aware of if you find that you're doing that, to catch yourself and instead be brave and take a baby step towards that fear. Just tell somebody, hey, I'm really not feeling good today. I'm in a bad mood, or I'm feeling hurt, or whatever that might be. Okay? Number 8. This is a tough one, but I have other podcast episodes about this that you can go back and listen to if you want, is seeing yourself as always the victim. Okay? Lump in the throat, I know. Okay? But here's why this is like, it might seem weird to think that if you're a victim, that you're in defense mode, You're defending yourself, right? This is all about what this podcast episode is. But it does keep you feeling safe from blame. It keeps you safe from being like the bad person, right? Because it's like victim and perpetrator, good versus evil, right? So if you're always the victim, you're always the one that was good. You're always the one that was free of blame, right? And I'm not saying that you are to blame or that you aren't good, right? I'm just saying holding on to this mentality and keeping it as part of your identity as the victim is a defense strategy. It's something that your mind is doing to help you feel safe. But on the flip side, it keeps you from growing. It keeps you from connection with people. It can change relationships in negative ways. It can harm you. It can harm other people around you. It keeps you feeling low self-worth. It keeps you feeling like you're not good enough. And I've worked with a lot of women who feel this way, and I used to feel this way too. But here's the thing that is the most important part about this. If you find that you are telling your story all the time, like, oh, my ex did this, and oh, they did that, and, you know, like, let's say that you're trying to get that either sympathy, empathy, connection, whatever from people, from other people, friends, family, strangers, even. My hands up, I've done that. Because what is happening inside of you is you're saying, look, I was the one that was victimized. I'm not the bad person. I'm the good person. This bad person did these bad things to me. Now, I have to make sure I am very clear about this. There's nothing wrong with being a victim, okay? The problem that we run into is that we hold on to being a victim when we're no longer a victim. Okay? So if you're still actively being victimized, you are a victim now. If your victimization happened in the past, but you're carrying it into the present, you were a victim. You are not a victim anymore. Okay? There's a big difference there. And I don't want there to be any like stigma around victimization. There isn't, right? There's no shame to being victimized. That is about what other people did to you. It doesn't have anything to do with you or your worth or anything. It's because someone else chose to do something bad, evil, wrong, okay? But if you carry that old label from the past into the present, whether that's your saying that I am a victim, whether that's your believing it, whether that's your behaviors or acting in such a way that shows that you're a victim, whatever that is, right? There's a reason that's happening to you, and it's because, again, it's a defense protection mechanism for you. Because I am not to blame, because I am not the bad person, right? It keeps the focus on somebody else. But ironically, it's actually putting the focus on you, okay? So if you find yourself doing this, please be kind to yourself. Please don't beat yourself up over this. This is very, very normal stuff, okay? If you're in like early stages, especially of your abuse recovery, or if you're in the late stages of it and you're like, man, I've been holding on to this for 10 years, right? It's okay. It's normal, right? But you will get your freedom back and you will break out of the cage that you're in when you stop identifying as that. When you start saying, wait a minute, I don't need to identify as a victim in order to be happy, in order to be successful, in order to be right. Even that, okay? Number 9 is distrusting all positive attention. Okay, so you might really resonate with this one. So if someone's being nice to you, you might question their motives. If someone compliments you, you might think that they're being fake. If if any sort of positivity kind of irritates you, you might think that that person is ingenuine. Okay? So when we have been emotionally abused, trusting ourselves and trusting other people is a huge hurdle to get over. Okay? And when positivity shows up, it's hard to like get behind, because it's like, this isn't my reality. People aren't this nice. People aren't kind. People are mean. People are horrible. People are bad, right? Like that's the reality that we live behind when we have been emotionally abused for years. So you question, is this person trying to manipulate me? Is this person trying to get something from me? Is this person just fake and a fraud, right? Because your brain is wired to look for that now. But the difficult part about this is when you can't lean into other people's kindness, other people's genuine support, other people's love and affection, right? It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that, again, you're building walls. You're trying to protect yourself, because guess what? What if I trust this person and then they hurt me? What if I believe what they're saying and then they take advantage of me, right? But guess what? If you trust someone and they break your trust, I mean, there's nothing you could do about that anyway, right? So not trusting people is a way of protecting yourself. I'm just not going to let people in. I'm just not going to trust people, and I will be safe. But here's the reality of this. You could trust somebody your whole life. It could be somebody you deeply trust, your best friend in the whole world, who you've known since you were 3, and that person can still betray your trust. The trust itself isn't what keeps you safe or keeps you unsafe. It's the relationship, it's the people, and people are flawed, right? So you can choose not to be trusting, or you can trust yourself that you'll be okay even if someone breaks that trust. So building the self-trust in you is really what's going to heal that part, okay? And help break those walls down. Number 10, our final one here. This is a big one. Believing that healing means total control, okay? So what do I mean by this? Thinking that you must perfectly manage life, be perfectly healed, do everything right to avoid getting hurt again. Okay? Perfectionism, healing, like showing up a certain type of way will keep you from getting hurt. Like believing these things. This is going to keep me from being hurt. If I do all these things, I'm not going to get hurt. But that's not reality. You can do everything perfectly and still be hurt. That's what we have to lean into. We have to understand that even if I show up as the best version of me, even if I do everything right, even if I do all the healing, even if I never mess up, I could still be hurt. I could still be hurt. Hurt is not the end of the world. Hurt is just information. Okay? It's an opportunity. It's an invitation to reflect, to become conscious, to become aware of these old patterns that have been poisoning you your whole life, that are keeping you trapped, that are keeping you from moving forward in your healing journey. Okay? To be the best version of you that you can. You know, if you think about it, like really look at yourself and evaluate yourself. What are the qualities, the good and the ones that you would say are negative qualities that you'd like to improve about yourself? What are those? And then, what is the version of you that you really want to be? You know, who do you want to be? That's what looking at all this stuff does. It helps you align your values, your desires with the actual behaviors and thoughts that make you who you are. So if you feel like you need to be perfect, you need to manage life a certain way, you need to do this, do that, whatever, like that you'll be in control of your safety, that is something that can keep you in defense mode. So if you notice that you're doing that kind of thing, you notice that you're like super organized about your life and planning and making sure everything goes perfectly and like helicoptering and monitoring all the things, right? If you're doing this kind of stuff, it's probably because you feel unsafe. And by doing these things and having this kind of, I'm going to use quote unquote control, it helps you feel safer. Because you think you're not going to be able to be hurt if like everything's managed perfectly. But that's not life. That's not reality. Okay? So you're not broken. Okay? And I'm not sharing these things with you to make you feel bad. I'm sharing them with you to help you change, to help you be aware of these things that you might not be aware of. And you're like, oh man, I didn't realize I did that. Right? Because these patterns were necessary for you at one point. You needed to do this at one point. Like number 10, like maybe as a kid, you were always cleaning your room, organizing everything, keeping everything really neat and tidy, because if you didn't, your parent was gonna explode on you. So now as an adult, you rage clean, you organize, you do all the things to keep everything life perfect because it helps you feel that sense of safety again. Okay? Mind is a complex place, right? But those things aren't serving you anymore. You don't need to behave the same ways that you used to behave to feel safe. You just think you do because it's all you've ever known. But tiny shifts, like baby steps, can make a big difference. So let yourself get curious about why you do the things you do. When you do something like, why did I do that? Why do I do that? Where did this come from? Right? Just like let that curiosity settle inside of you. Allowing these alternative or new possibilities to seep in instead of having these rigid rules about like how I must be, how life must be, how other people must be. Wait a minute, maybe it's not about me that they did that. Maybe it's something else. Like starting to consider other possibilities is going to be a game changer. And then practicing being compassionate to yourself instead of being on the defense all the time, right? Because when people think of self-defense, they often think of somebody who's like arguing or like putting up a fight, which is true. Like that is a self-defense, but there's all these other ones that most people aren't aware of. These 10 that I rattled off here: hyper-vigilance, seeing criticisms everywhere, needing things your way, over-explaining, over-justifying, pushing people away, obsessing over fairness and justice, expecting people to like read between the lines or get you without ever explaining yourself, seeing yourself always as the victim, distrusting any sort of positive attention, compliments, kindness, and then again, believing that you have to be in control. You have to manage life perfectly so that you won't get hurt. Okay? So ask yourself, which of these feel familiar to you without judging? Okay? Just noticing it. Like, oh, I didn't realize. Because here's the thing. Once you figure out what those things are, you can work to change them. If you don't know that they're happening, you can't change anything. So let's try something this week, okay? Commit to yourself to do a little tiny experiment where you can let your defenses rest, even for a moment, okay? So what this might look like would be, once you identify where your defenses are and what specifically, let's say you're like, oh my gosh, I have like 5 out of 10. Okay, well, that's fine. Pick one, okay? Let's say that you're the over-explainer. Practice noticing when you do that And guess what? You're allowed to pull back on things that you did. For instance, if you over-explained your shoe purchase to somebody who said they liked your shoes, you can go back and be like, you know what? I take all that back. I take all of it back. I bought the shoes. You like my shoes. Thank you so much for the compliment. I'm just going to receive that compliment. You can do that. Like, who says you can't? Right? So it's just about being aware. Okay? If you find yourself distrusting somebody's motives or, something like that, start to question like, well, what do I really know about this person? Do I know this person? Could I just be judging them because of my trauma? Right? Or is this somebody who I've seen has a pattern of taking advantage of people, and so I'm logically aware that this is what's happening? Or am I just being overly defensive? Right? It's just a matter of getting outside of your trauma and back into your mind. Okay? Now, if you need more support, in the past, I have offered free consultations that are focused on exploring whether we're a good fit to work together, which one of my programs would be a good fit for you. But I recently realized that you all need more than just that, that you need insight. So what I have created are root cause calls, okay? And what these are they're a space where we get into what's actually holding you back, okay? It's not a coaching call. Think of it like an exploration of your subconscious mind. And then you get to decide from there. And I'll still tell you about the programs I have and things like that. But I just realized that versus you just telling me your story and what you're struggling with, and then me saying, here's what I think would be best fit for you, I created this root cause call. And this root cause call, I'm providing a space for you where we're going to figure out what's actually holding you back. And then you have more information to decide what's going to be best for you. Okay? So if you're interested in doing that, you can get the link in the show notes. You can always message me on Instagram or message me on Facebook Messenger. You can email me. You can check out my website. But I'm here to support you. I'm here to shed light on the areas that maybe you haven't seen. The things that are in the shadows, the things that are in the dark, that are keeping you from being your highest self. And I want to help you through that. So I hope this has been enlightening and helpful. If it has, please leave me a review. I really, really, really love hearing what you guys think about my podcast, and it helps other people decide if they want to listen. And I think the more that this gets out into the world, the better place that we're going to be for everybody. So thanks again for being here. Stay true to yourself. Keep working on yourself. Keep trying. Keep the focus on your healing, and you know where to find me if you need my help. So talk to you next week.